Rama, 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 Hare, Hare. Yesterday evening, the topic was the best of the servants of Lord Ramachandra. And we spent most of our time discussing Hanuman, because Hanuman wins, the best of Ram's devotees. At the same time, one can make an argument, one can hold the position, our acharyas take the position that the position of Lakshmana in relation to Ramchandra is very special, and one could argue the best. The best. So that's our topic this evening. The name for each of the four brothers was given by Vashishta, and he could see from their horoscope and everything else he could see their character. So Lakshmana has as its root, this identifies him with Lakshmi, which means wealth, and his wealth was service to Ram. Lakshmana. This is something that we didn't hear yesterday. There's one of the most prominent, or the most prominent Sri Vaishnava Acharya commenting on Ramayana is Govindaraja. Maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of you haven't heard. So he, among other things, has this list of 18 cardinal lessons of Ramayana. And for your information, there's a nice devotee who will be attending the Sri Lanka Yatra, and he's writing a several volume long exposition on Ramayana, significantly drawing from Govindaraja's commentaries, plural, and he's going to be speaking on this topic. He's a guest speaker, one of 3 guest speakers, and this is his topic, the 18 cardinal lessons of Ramayana from Govindaraja's writings. So he's going to have 3 or 4 sessions, I forget, and very learned. Vidvan Garanga is his name. Very nice devotee, very sattvic, very nice. If you happen to come, or YouTube recordings will be made and so forth. So you'll hear all about it if you check in on the YouTube channel. Here's the first characteristic is in relationship with Lakshmana. That is, the characteristic of a devotee yearning for liberation is the mood of service, or sesatvam. Tvam means having the characteristic of shesha, or servitude. Rendering personal service to the Supreme Lord in pure devotion. Sesatvam. And that's Lakshmana, primary person. Lakshmana implored Lord Ram to take him to the forest by saying, "Please make me your servant. There's nothing inappropriate in this. My purpose will become fulfilled, and your needs can be taken care of." We heard this yesterday. This is just a continuation of the same sesatvam characteristic of Lakshmana. Sesatvam means the servitude towards someone. There's a sheshi and there's shesha. Sheshi is Lord Ram. Shesha is Lakshmana. Servitude towards someone, in this case towards Ramachandra. Sesatvam has 2 classes. Bhagavat, Sesatvam, service toward the Supreme Lord, and Bhagavata, service toward the Lord's devotee. And Shatrughna had the second of the 2. He was very, very devoted to, who was Shatrughna devoted to? Bharata. Very, very devoted to Bharata, which is nice. And it's a stage of spiritual perfection. He's honored. Wow. Maybe we should close the door. Somebody's a little excited out there. Thank you very much. Little boy wants to come inside and do his thing inside, but he's being invited to stay outside. Uh-oh. Shh. Let's see what happens. Okay. Stepping back, according to the commentators on Ramayana, the entire teaching is encompassed in the book. There's teachings of the pastime. There's teachings of tattva. There's teachings of rasa. There's layers of teachings, and when carefully drawn by our acharyas, they can point to this and that and the other thing, and comprehensively, Ramayana has everything. I mean, the Bhagavatam has everything, and Ramayana has everything. That's what our acharyas say. So these are details, but it's part of spiritual life. So spiritual life is devotion to the Lord, devotion to the Lord's devotee. Lakshmana has devotion to the Lord. Bhagavat sesatvam. Here's another term. Paratantriyam was Bharata. Paratantriyam means complete dependency on a higher authority. So Bharata exhibited that in his behavior and his part of Ramayana. He took the position, as we all know. He served the shoes, the padukas of Ramachandra for 14 years, placed them on a throne, and he underwent austerities like Ramachandra was doing within the forest, living, sleeping on the ground, etc., and eating roots and bark and all those things. It's a playground. Okay. Dasyatvam, that's Shatrughna. So there's all four. Bharata, Paratantriyam. Shatrughna, Dasyatvam. The Lord, devoted to the Lord's devotee. So Lakshmana is Sesatvam, means he had no interest separate from Lord Ram's interest. And there's verses, that reminds me. There's some often quoted, celebrated verses that you should have received a little document that you can look at it later, please. But a little document that has these references, verses drawn directly from Ramayana, where Lakshmana is speaking to Ram, describing his dedication to Ram, this Sesatvam feature. No separate interest. Again and again. The absolute order carry of Ram without question. Within Lakshman's service, he also had because he's a brother, Sakya, friendship. But service in this other mood. Lakshmana told Hanuman, for example, I am the younger brother. This is when they first met. This is the scene. I am the younger brother, famous by the name Lakshmana. Captivated by his qualities, I become his servant. For he is grateful and considers little acts of service to be great. Thus, the mood of service is imbued with appreciation of the Supreme Lord. This is in all of his behaviors and all of his words. It's Lakshmana. It's to help us understand him. He helps us understand what the proper mood or complete, absolute mood of service to the Supreme Lord is. When he was discussing with his mother, conveyed back by Sumantra when Sumantra was coming back, and in his return to Ayodhya, I do not consider the emperor as my father, Dasarath. For me, Rama is my brother, lord, relative, and my father. So Sumantra was to convey that back in Ayodhya. It's not like he's cutting ties. He just has that mood of absolute devotion in all respects to the personality of Godhead, and that's how he conducted himself. Lakshmana's response when Ram requested Lakshmana to construct a cottage in Panchavati, considering the liking of all three. And he took exception to that statement. Lakshmana thought that Lord Ram had separated Lakshmana's pleasure from Lord Ram's pleasure. Lakshmana, with joined palms, replied, I am but a dependent. As long as you are here, even if that be eternity, I will be submissive to you. Therefore, you tell me a place where is delightful for you. That's Lakshmana. Now, it's nothing wrong with saying, build a cottage that's suitable for all three of us. That's conventional. And Lakshmana is not conventional in that sense. Please don't speak like that. I'm dependent on you. You say what you want, and that's what I'll do, because I have no interest other than your interest. I mean, consistently, there's discussions like this. Here's a nice painting. Here's Kaikeyi standing there with her arms folded, and Dasarath broken with jewelry, all of his ornaments scattered on the ground, and various persons appealing to her, and Sita is putting on her garments for the forest life. No one can stand it except Kaikeyi thinks it's just fine. And off they go into the forest. And when they're going off into the forest, the people in the city of Ayodhya are destitute. No, don't go. How can he go? Sorrow. That's another topic. Here's another topic that's related to all of this. There's a Mangalacharana verse for the entire Ramayana. You know what the Mangalacharana verse for the entire Ramayana is? It's towards the very beginning when Valmiki hears in 72 verses the summation of the entire Ramayana from Narada, and Narada departs. And Valmiki, for one muhurta, 48 minutes, he's meditating on what he heard from Narada, and then he, Valmiki, goes with Bharadraj, his disciple, to the bank of the river Tamasa. And while there, they see a hunter shoot an arrow and kill a male bird in the midst of his passion with a female bird. And completely out of keeping with a transcendentalist that doesn't become, nasochati, nakangsati, becomes irate. And he recites a verse, and he curses the verse that just as you have done this, you will also have to experience this very same suffering. And then right after he says it, he's shocked. And where'd that come from? That's not me, but where'd it come from? He said, something very harsh in a very angry tone, filled with sorrow for the male bird that's been killed. So he goes back to his ashram perplexed, and he gets a visit from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma reveals, it was I who made you speak those words. This will be the essence of the entire book that you're going to write, summarizing or expanding on what Narada Muni told you. And there's a 1 million verse version, which I'm going to reveal all the details to you. It's a very nice little introduction to Ramayana. And you'll be able to understand, even without seeing the personalities that you're writing about, their mood, their emotions, their thoughts. Even if they don't speak something, you'll know everything about them. I'll disclose all of that to you. You just write it down. And it'll be perfect. He gives them all these wonderful benedictions. So in that Mangalacharna verse, there's this exclamation of sorrow. He, Valmiki, is feeling great sorrow for the Krancha bird that was killed, and the dismay of the female bird in the whole circumstance. So the mood of sorrow fills much of Ramayana. But that sorrow is not like the mundane sorrow. It's a nice teaching. This is on the rasa topic of lessons within Ramayana. But rasa trumps everything. If you don't understand a certain passage from Bhagavatam or anything, Ramayana, take a look at the rasa that's involved and the stimulation of these citizens of Ayodhya in the mood of separation, because they're completely attached to Ramachandra and he's leaving. Sorrow, which intensifies their mood of their relationship, whatever it is, whatever the rasa is, it becomes magnified or intensified by that mood of sorrow. Karuna rasa. It's a nice subject. And Ramayana is filled with it. And again, and Dasarath even dies with that feeling, so intense, because his love for Ramachandra was so intense. And so forth and so on. So there they go into the forest. And then comes the very first evening, they come to a river and they meet up with with a boatman named Guha, a tribal chieftain named Guha. So by the side of the river, this is still Ayodhya Kanda. We haven't entered into the forest yet. Lakshmana and Guha have a conversation. It's a very long section. It's a whole chapter. And in essence, they spend the whole night discussing the great misfortune that has come. And Lakshmana wants to serve. He starts with Guha saying some nice things. You're used to palatial life. You're used to comforts. Here we are out in the forest. I'll stay and guard Ram and Sita. You can take rest. Here's a nice place. You can take rest. Nice and soft place. And so forth and so on. He's being a host, hospitable for his prince. And, a royal family member. And he's a tribal chieftain. And Lakshman goes into this long soliloquy of what his feelings are about what just happened. They're banished to the forest for 14 years and how that's affecting him, how that's affecting Dasarath, how it's affecting the citizens of Ayodhya, and he's describing how they're not going to be able to live. First one to go will be Dasarath, and when Dasarath dies, the queens will die, and then the queens die, the citizens will die, and it's like so horrible and horrible. He's feeling compassion for their feelings. And you want me to take rest, but I can't take rest. Well, over here, see, there's Sita and Rama, and they're taking rest. We're off in the forest. I can't take rest. I have to guard. And all his mood of servitude and his pain, the sorrow that he's feeling due to the whole circumstance. The others are without Ram. He's with Ram, and he's feeling that same sorrow for them. It's empathy, magnified like anything. And they spent the whole night discussing like this. When Guha hears these emotions and the exclamations of Lakshman, he cries. A tribal chieftain cries. The next morning, it's time to move on. Here's the tribal chieftain, Guha, making arrangement for a boatman to issue them across the boat. And as they're getting on the boat, Lakshman gets on the boat, Sita's on the boat, and the boatman says, no, he can't get on the boat. What? I know about, if he puts his feet on the boat, you know what happens? I heard that he put his feet on this boat, or this stone, and a halya came out of the stone. So, I rely on this boat as my livelihood, and he can't get on the boat. So, Guha made a clever arrangement. He washed Ram's feet, so he won't have a problem. He can get on this boat. It's okay. And off they go, crossing the river to get to the other side. Lakshman exemplified that the purpose of one's life must be to serve the Supreme Lord in totality, with mind, words, and actions. And now they're on the other side of the river, and the rest of his 14 years is spent simply taking care of Ram and Lakshman. Of course, Sita and Lakshman, Sita and Ram. Now, there we see the painting of Lakshman while Sita is massaging Ram's legs. Now, he doesn't need his legs massaged, but she's doing it anyways. And Lakshman is standing guard. And, it doesn't say whether Lakshman took a little nap sometime during the day for 14 years. He's got to sleep sometime. But he was very busy guarding. And he served in many ways. Here it depicts he gathered edibles, forest edibles, and little fire, and he did some cooking. He prepared food for them. Here he gathered in a little basket some wild berries and fruits. He carried a clay pot with water. And in everything, all of his needs, that was Lakshman, the trusty servant of Lord Ramachandra, and Sita, of course. Now there's a nice discussion when they're traveling through the forest and they happen along to the place where Bharadraj Muni has his ashram. And there the three are seated before Bharadraj Muni. And he is very sympathetic. He hears the whole situation that they're undergoing. And he makes some recommendation for them. He makes the recommendation they go to Chitrakoot Mountain. This is how Chitrakoot Mountain gets into the picture. Bharadraj Muni's recommendation. And it's the scene is up high. There's lots of room. This is a big house. Gentlemen, move up a little bit so the ladies can scoot in. Thank you. So Chitrakoot Mountain, it's has a notoriety, something like Haridwar has notoriety for a place where sadhus will go and undergo austerities and strive for spiritual elevation and so forth. So Chitrakoot mountain had that reputation. Very picturesque, abundance of fruit, roots, honey, flowers, chirping birds, singing birds, animals roaming that are freely without fear. Hundreds of sages had gone there in the past. It's a sacred place, so that's his recommendation, Bharadraj Muni. And then, along the route, they happened to pass through where Valmiki is. And Valmiki, there's not a whole lot that's exchanged between them. It's just that Sri Ram explains why they're being sent to the forest for 14 years, and he's acknowledging, and off they go. So there they go to make the cottage. And you heard already Ram's words, make a cottage that's suited for the three of us, and please don't speak like that. There's only one thing, it's serving you, tell me what you want. So he made a nice cottage. And later, Sita Devi is sending a message back to Sri Ram. This is, fast forwarding because they're skipping a whole bunch of the history of the exchanges between the two. But this is just indicating, I want to indicate his mood of servitude to Lord Ramachandra. So Sita Devi is being informed by Lakshmana that she used to go in exile. And Sita sent a message with Lakshman back to Ram, questioning the wisdom. She says to Lakshman that he would have noticed that she's pregnant. So Lakshman's reply, "O auspicious one, O faultless one, your body is not seen by me. As your feet alone were the object of my vision until now, how shall I behold you separated from Ram, dwelling in this forest?" Like, he's carrying a message that he doesn't want to carry. He didn't notice she was pregnant because he only looks at her feet. Lakshman does not want to behold her face in Sri Ram's absence. It will be a transgression of etiquette for him. So there's more and more and more. This is deliberately this evening is a little on the briefer side than what we did yesterday. But I wanted to emphasize the whole purpose of this is the character of Lakshman as the best of Ram's devotees. One can make an argument because exclusively, he was dedicated to serving Ramachandra. No, one can certainly say the same for Hanuman, and we did yesterday. So they're rivaling one another for who gets the number one position. But he's the personality of Godhead afterwards. And then the other is he's the pure devotee of the Lord afterwards, after all. So who wins? It's not a competition. They're both ideal. And the one of the topics we heard yesterday, I'll repeat again, and that is the position of Lakshmana is, according to Shastra, he serves the position of Guru, because the Guru function is he represents and delivers the personality of Godhead. The Guru's function is to speak simply the words of the personality of Godhead, of course in his own words, but carry his message and deliver his message only. No editing, no modification of message, just straight message. And then with that message, the person. And Lakshman, carries that mood so strongly that you associate with Lakshman and you're associating with the personality of Godhead. Because the representative of the Supreme is so much aligned with the Supreme that there's no separation. you find about the Supreme through the medium of the representative of the Supreme, and that's Lakshmana's position. He knew perfectly well Lord Ramachandra's everything. And of course it was what he understood was confidential, and what was confidential he kept confidential, but he knew, and that guided his service. And that's a responsibility of someone that has, in either case, service to the Supreme Lord or service to the devotee of the Supreme Lord. Affinity for the person who is being served. That's why we heard this sesatvam. There are two kinds, Bhagavata and Bhagavan. The service of the servant and the service of the Supreme. And it's imperative, the one who is the servant, to know the interest of the master. Here's I'm going to speak something broad, and in relation to ISKCON. Here's a question: what's ISKCON going to be like 50 years from now? It relates to what I just said about sesatvam. During Srila Prabhupada's time, he was the king. He was the emperor. And loved by everyone, not just obedience, but love. And his capacity to give to others, his followers and others that weren't his followers, was unstoppable. I mean, unstoppable. I'll get lost by describing the glories of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Glorious personality. Sacrificed left, right, and sideways. And I learned this from Hari Sori. Some of you know who Hari Sori is? Raise your hand if you know who Hari Sori is. A few. Hari Sori was Prabhupada's personal servant for a number of years. The longest tenure of a personal servant of anyone. And so he had intimate contact with Srila Prabhupada. So I asked Hari Sori one time, I understood, I read that Prabhupada had, when he went to the West, he went from India in Vrindavan to the West, he had two purposes in going. One was to give his association to his disciples. Another, Prabhupada's explicit words, to establish Varnashram in Gitanagari. Because there was a farm in mid-Pennsylvania, Gitanagari. And Prabhupada went for those two purposes. But he got as far as London, and he had to have a surgery because his kidney wasn't working. And I asked him, what do you know about that? And I just pressed his Prabhupada button, and we were having prasadam together, and he just kept taking prasadam but telling Prabhupada stories. He said, the reason that Prabhupada had massage on a regular basis was because one of his kidneys didn't work at all, and the other kidney worked half. What that means is, what the kidneys do, they take toxins from the body and eliminate the toxins through urine. That's what kidneys do. But one of his kidneys wasn't working at all. And one was working half, and so his body was always in pain. His body was always in pain. And for that reason, to make up for his kidneys weren't working, he had massage because it helped loosen the toxins from the tissues of his body, and then he could eliminate. I think you better take her. Better take her. Ha 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 ha. Ooh, wild one. Like that at home regularly? Why she come to you? You have no idea. She knows you. Okay. 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 We'll wait for the next interruption. So Prabhupada had one kidney that didn't work, one that was half worked, and that's why he had massage. So he was just sharing with me. His point, Hari Sori's point was, Prabhupada's body was always in pain. And then as we were having lunch. When we were having lunch, he said one time Prabhupada had an abscess. You know what an abscess is? There's an infection in your tooth or gum, and your whole side of your jaw swells. So the devotee said, can we take you to a dentist? He said, no, just give me some cloves. Cloves have this power, the potency, that it kind of dulls the nervous system where the cloves are. So he just put some cloves in his cheek, so his cheek was even more bulged than with the abscess. And he just went on, like, a body in pain because the kidneys weren't working, and then the abscess. And it's like it wasn't even there. He just carried on like it wasn't even there. One time, and so a few days later, during Prasadam, Prabhupada reached in his mouth, pulled out the tooth, handed it to Hari Sori and said, here, you can keep this. And went on with his lunch. Now, anyone that has a toothache knows how painful it is. It's like your whole attention goes there, right? But Prabhupada was a transcendentalist, absolute transcendentalist. And how is that possible? Mind completely fixed on his position as being the servant of the personality of Godhead. It's not that the person who is the servant of the personality of Godhead doesn't feel pain. But they're transcendental to the pain, somehow, because their consciousness is absolutely... So there were times when it wasn't difficult like that, but when it was difficult like that, it didn't affect him at all. And I could go on and on and on about the transcendental nature of our founder Acharya. So Mike, back to my question. When he was present, he was the king, he was the leader, the Rajarshi. He was certainly vastly learned, but he was a forward-thinking person and engaging us in the mission. And it was an explosion, the Hare Krishna explosion. During his time, he foresaw the growth, and he did the needful. He established the GBC, and incorporations of ISKCON in this place, that place, and the other place, like ISKCON of Houston. But there was, anyway, with all the history, the legal corporation, he did that even in Jhansi. Anyway, my question is, so then, in 50 years, what's it going to be like? So first generation, fine. Prabhupada, the Hare Krishna explosion, fine. And then next generation, persons that had his association gathered strength from him and carried forward. And then what? And then what? When that generation passes, then what? And when that generation succeeds them, passes, then what? So what's the Hare Krishna movement going to be 50 years from now? I mean, I think about it. Maybe we all should think about it. And one of the answers is, you, Prabhus, you're the future. What it's going to be, it's in your hands. Now, it's important that those that had received to some extent and dedicated themselves in service to the mission and to our founder Acharya and so forth, they pass that on to others. That's what I'm doing a little bit right now. But then what? It's a concern for me. So please make your best effort to understand these principles. It's nice to hear about sesatvam, Lakshmana, and Kijai. That's a nice Ramayana story. Now, how does that pertain to all of us? At least ourselves and our families and our communities are dependent upon that sesatvam feature that we have, whether it's the Bhagavan or Bhagavata sesatvam, either, or combination. So when reading Ramayana, when hearing about these personalities, to make it like fit us and our forward progress, there's inspiration, and we have responsibility for our communities here in Houston and anywhere else. I travel a lot, so I meet other communities too. I'm on a little soapbox here, kind of rah. We have to think of the future, because in part that's what hearing from the scripture does. If we receive it properly, it was the verse in the Bhagavatam class this morning. Who remembers the verse from the Bhagavatam class this morning? What's the verse? Okay. The Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. That's how the first line begins. Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. Those who engage themselves in this activity, from the right source, hearing it very carefully and regularly, they qualify themselves to see the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead personally, very quickly. Very quickly, that's relative. But very quickly, compared to anything else, it's very quickly. And so that's that same, when one has that qualification or want to serve. The effect of Shravanam Kirtanam is, of course, Vishnu Smaranam, but Vishnu, how can one always remember, just like this example of Prabhupada with his abscessed tooth? How can you be transcendental to an abscessed tooth? You're absorbed. You're so absorbed in something else, it's a blip in the screen. It's inconsequential. Here, you can keep this. The abscess went down. I mean, it's otherworldly. So we're not otherworldly. We're worldly, trying to become elevated, and this process of hearing is one of, and having a clear picture of what this message is telling us. That's why I like this topic, Lakshmana. There he is. Any service whatsoever. Any service whatsoever. And during Prabhupada's time, that was the mood. I mean, during Prabhupada's time. A little story, and then I'm going to end and see if you have some discussion. Prabhupada was very expansive. So expansive that before your time, but during Prabhupada's time, there was a conflict between Pakistan and India. Big. It was like a war. And then the United States took the Pakistan side, and Russia took India's side, and it was boiling to the point it couldn't become another world war. India was receiving weapons from Russia. Pakistan was giving weapons from America. And it was, very dangerous. In the midst of that, and there was East Pakistan, West Pakistan. It was like wild, and so on. Very extreme. Prabhupada sent Brahmananda to one place, West Pakistan, and his brother Gargamuni to East Pakistan. During this hot, almost explosive war. And it got so wild that Gargamuni had to leave, and Prabhupada hadn't heard it all from Brahmananda. He thought maybe he got killed because there were some devotees, there were some Hindus that were killed by the Muslims. And Prabhupada was worried. Days and days and days and days passed. He came to visit Prabhupada, and Prabhupada embraced him, cried. They spent hours and hours. They spent a few days together. Within a few days, he sent Brahmananda to Africa. And Brahmananda's comment was, what can I say? I'm Prabhupada's yes man. I mean, that was the mood. That was the mood. And the commander-in-chief said, and he did, risking his life, as Prabhupada risked his life. He had people ready to give their life this way or that way. Wow. So, and then those persons became the leaders that led the movement. They imbibed that mood from our founder Acharya, and then time passed and the next generation. So therefore, this topic of sesatvam is relevant to all of us. That's my point. It's a nice story. He's really dedicated and fantastic. He's a Vishnu Tattva personality, not a Jiva Tattva personality. What about us? And then what's the future? I hope the message is clear. I hope the message is clear. It's not like the guy over there is going to do it, so we don't have to worry about it because the guy over there is going to do it. We just do our thing. So do your thing. Do your sadhana and perform your occupation, and it's all those nice things that good people do when they're doing spiritual things. And then there's step back a little bit, and how do we get here? Somebody before us sacrificed a whole bunch. And so we have books, we have the sacrifice that Prabhupada made to make his books, and so on and so on and so on. And we have that resource. We have deities, we have kirtan, and we have affluence. We have resources to do. So it's not, we need to be responsible to take that which we have received from those that gave us the things that we have received, and use them very, very vigilantly and carefully, and pass it on to others. Be walking examples of what the books say, and receive it inside. That's the grinanti. Shinvanti, gayanti, grinanti, sadhavaha. You bring it inside, and then you live it, and you give it to others. Because it's inside, you give it to others as best you can. Okay, I got a little carried away. I hope it's okay. Let's see if there's some discussion. Maybe just come back to the nice Leela of Lakshmana. The best of Ram's devotees. Nobody's raising their hand. You just wait a while. Okay, here we go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you.
Nice to see so many people gathered here. Thank you all for coming. Really, thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. So speaking of servitude and considering today's day and age, when everybody is self-centered, how do we truly develop the servitude attitude, a pure one, because we are so self-centered that our egos conflict and we are not really focused on servitude. It's self-centered, self-serving basically.
Well, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Kama Krodha Vijayate from Bhagavad Gita. One of the best ways to develop any quality is to associate with those that have that quality. So find some people. I can say, for me, it's natural. It's just like, it's easy. I like service. And it can be this and that and the other thing. But it doesn't have to be here. It can be here. It can be there. It can be whatever it is. So it's Krishna. If you have a desire, so this is the what's inside. If there's some faith that there's a higher consciousness, there's a higher reality, there's an opportunity that I have to experience more than just stuff. Being involved with stuff and managing stuff and getting more stuff, and there's something more than that. And I have some faith in that. In association with those that have that, that's how you get it. I'm going to tell a little story. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. And a lot of things happened when I was in college. And fast forward, many things happened, and I decided I have received so much from a person who sacrificed his life to find me in a remote place and give me the holy name in Bhagavad Gita. I can't just say thank you and carry on. I have to reciprocate. The feelings of gratitude were so profound. I have to do something. So that something was, let me assist my spiritual master in doing what he came to the West to do. So I decided I was going to live in an ashram for a while. I was on a track to become a medical doctor and so forth. But I took a little break, a 55-year break. So I went to live in an ashram. So where I went to undergraduate school to get to the Boston Temple. I went to the Boston Temple because I had gone to Boston to visit potential graduate schools, because lots of nice schools in Boston. And when I was there, it's a detail. When I was there, I was staying with some friends, and the windowsill in a loft was those little tiny Jagannath deities, carved like that big. And I knew who they were. So I said, this is a sign, I have to go to the temple. I didn't plan, but I had to go to the temple. So I went to the temple, and it was Nrsimha Chaturdasi. I didn't know. It was Nrsimha Chaturdasi. And there was a big festival, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So when it came, I want to live in an ashram and help Prabhupada with what he came here to do. Because that's why one of the reasons he set up temples, give us and give to others. So I drove all the way from where I went to undergraduate school to Boston. It took like 15 hours. I had a little Volkswagen Bug, good in economy and gas. And when I got there, it was a Sunday, and we attended the temple program, and I was looking forward to having the Sunday feast. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten the whole way. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, is it okay? We need some help in the pot room. Can you go wash pots? And I was like, wow, I'm really hungry. Okay, I'll wash pots, because service-minded. But fast forward, it took a month of a guy that's on his way to med school washing pots. It was demeaning. I was like, don't they know who I am? And, I can do so much more than... But there was a purpose. The purpose was humility. Get freed from pride. It was a whole month. It was... I heard persons would say, oh, Prabhupada said, because that was, the hook. Prabhupada said, you wash the pots, you're cleansing your heart. So I didn't say it, but I was thinking, oh yeah, why don't you clean your heart? Stand next to me here and wash some pots, please. I didn't say it. But, smart aleck, college kid. Pride. And then another one was, Prabhupada said, you should watch the pots so completely you can see your face in the bottom of the pot. And I don't know if it meant the place where the food goes or the place where the fire goes. But in those days, there was not enough money to buy new pots, so it was used pots, and they were all wrinkled at the bottom, and it was cake black. So I said, okay. Prabhupada said, I'm going to make this so... And when the last pot, it took a month, when the last pot was so shiny, you could see your face in the part where the flame goes. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, guess what? We find somebody else to do the pot washing. Can you want to come with us on Harinam? And the light went on. All of that was to teach me what your question was. So if you have a desire, Krishna will help you. Service attitude. And it was the Prabhupada said, it was attachment to it's why I was there. I wanted to give back to the person who sacrificed everything to give me. And so if there's a price I have to pay, and that is let go of my pride, great. You scrape that pride away, well, what's underneath? Service attitude. It's not, yay, I get to go on Harinam. It's, yay, I got freed from pride. Or at least, a certain mountain's worth of pride. It was painful, but it was wholesome. So associate with people that have that service attitude, and it becomes your quality also. Something else. You have a question, comment, something.
Question, Maharaj. So I received so much from you and all devotees, and I feel like I should also be an instrument in sharing, but sometimes because of my anarthas on one side, on the other side, the turbulences or the difficulties I go through, so much of effort goes in handling them or taking care of them. And so I feel like limited in
You're
doing.
welcome to the club.
But one after, so I feel like, okay, now this is taken care, and let me focus on something, and something else comes up. But my question is, like, it reminds me of all the different devotees in Ramayana, how they serve Rama, like monkeys or Jatayu or different
Yes.
personalities. They serve with their own capacity. But especially the squirrel example, the squirrel.
The squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the squirrel.
So, although it's so tiny, but Lord Rama appreciate it because it gave it 100%.
To your capacity, that's what you do.
So, although when you look externally, the quantity-wise, Lord Hanuman did so much. But I also
But
feel
it's not quantity-wise, it's his heart.
his heart. Yeah, I feel very encouraged.
You heard the class yesterday, right? He opened his heart, and there was
Yes.
Sitaram. And then he was on every bone, Kritivasan Ramayanas, and every bone inscribed Ram, Ram, Ram. It's not just,
His heart.
yeah, it's hard.
But when externally, when I see, I also doubt myself, am I giving my 100%? But at the same time, I feel motivated and encouraged that Lord Rama is looking at my intention
Yeah.
than anything else. So, do I really worry about how much I'm doing or just how well I'm doing?
Both. Why one or the other?
In that case, I feel very
We're
not
tiny.
satisfied at all.
Yeah. That's a good feeling. It's it can be a negative emotion, and it can be an inspiring emotion. Like this thing, is it a glass half filled or glass half empty? So with what you have, that's what you can use to serve. And two things, by serving, it grows. And by serving, the relationship with Krishna becomes strengthened, and you get better intelligence how to use what you have. Because intelligence comes from Supersoul. So, be tiny little guy, little gal. It's okay.
And I was taught that any activity we do should be as a service to Guru and Krishna. So even if it's like a small activity.
Yeah, you do what you can do. Some people can do this, and some people can do this. You understood it. The squirrel and building the bridge. What's he going to do to build the bridge? Kick a few pebbles into the sea.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, behind you. Raise your hand. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Hare Krishna. I think you have to press that little magic button.
Hare Krishna. So this concept of Bhagavat Sheshatvam and Bhagavata Sheshatvam that you mentioned, it's very beautiful, and the meanings to the meanings to Andal's Tirupavai prayers to Krishna, they also deeply discuss this concept of Bhagavat Sheshatvam and Bhagavata Sheshatvam, and Bhagavata Sheshatvam, which is serving the devotees of the Lord, is greatly celebrated. And it's just a wonderful concept. Now, for someone like me who lives in the suburb, where the temple is not in proximity,
Speak slowly now. You're getting to the punchline of your question, and your voice is speeding up. Slowly and clearly, please.
Yeah. So this concept of Bhagavata Sheshatvam, which is Dasanudas Bhav, or serving the devotees of the Lord.
Which one do you like more? I think I know.
And so for some of us who live in the suburb where the temple is not so much in proximity to us, sometimes I find a lot of joy in serving the devotees of the Lord.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Triple fantastic. So now you're just sharing. Do you have a question?
Yeah, but I also understand that sometimes serving the devotees of the Lord can be a lot harder than serving the Lord himself.
Why?
And I'd love to hear some
Because
thoughts
of differences?
on that.
Differences? Differences make service hard?
Yeah. And
Ego? What is it?
I think it's easier for one to accept the supremacy of the Lord as opposed to the supremacy of the devotees of the Lord.
So do both. But the point is, it's 2 points. The devotee is representing. So therefore, when I'm serving the devotee, I'm serving the representative of. And the second thing is we're conditioned souls, and the person who we're serving may also be, to some degree at least, conditioned, maybe more or maybe less than me, but I'm serving them. And so because of our less than perfect condition, there's going to be some bumps. Whether it's in a marriage, or whether it's in a community, or whether it's in whatever the circle is, big or small, there's going to be some differences. Of, I like it this way, and they like it that way, and less than perfect. Besides differences. But you stay focused on the principle, and it carries you beyond the differences. The oneness carries you beyond the differences. And you respect the differences, and you focus on the oneness. It's training, but that's the solution. It's sometimes more difficult because it's a saintly quality. One of the characteristics in Bhagavad Gita, one of the characteristics of knowledge, is the same as stated in 4 places in the Bhagavad Gita. Pandita samadarshana. Now there's differences. So how do you see sameness when there's differences? You see what's within. The essence that's the same. Here's a soul that's part and parcel of the Supreme, meant for the pleasure of the Supreme, meant for serving the Supreme, like me. And there's differences. Different bodies, different minds, different personalities, different cultures, different backgrounds, different dispositions, differences. Abundant differences. Within all of that, there's this oneness. So harmonize the differences by the respect that goes to the sameness, and you respect the differences. It's different. It's okay. And if there's something that is like out of alignment with what's pleasing to Krishna, the process of bhakti will take care of it. Now we have to make decisions and do things and say things and corresponding to that alignment, but that's our business. That's your business. Mine too. And that's our challenge or opportunity. Is it glass half full or half empty? It's your opportunity. Rise above your conditioning. Focus on the mood of service. You can do it. Krishna will help you do it, right behind you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question where if I'm in a situation where I'm serving a person who is not inclined towards the Supreme.
Okay.
So
that happens.
How would be my mood?
Depends. Depends on you, depends on them, depends on the relationship. Supposing it's a family member. Supposing it's mom and dad.
Yeah.
We're getting okay. So you respect because they're mom and dad. And they're not inclined. And there's different degrees of being not inclined. There may be some lines that you draw, there may not be, but please don't be offensive. Don't vilify. Yes. And then otherwise, you respect the differences. They're different. So as you shine through with pure, as you can, bhakti, that's going to impact them. Not you take on but you impact them. You give to them your quality. I mean, it's not easy. It's not like snap your fingers and that's it. But that's the direction to move in. And rely on Krishna. And that's what you should do.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, up front.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. I do not have a question.
You don't?
But I just want to appreciate wonderful knowledge I received today, and definitely inspirational. And the story you shared about your own self, definitely I will reflect upon it. And thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna to the host and all the people I'm not wanting to speak about on behalf of everybody, but just wanted to share my own feelings. Hare Krishna.
Amo, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I was thinking in the context of service to Guru and orders about some of the Goswamis of Vrindavan. And one point about, so recently a few of us have been looking at the lives of the Goswamis, so that's a little bit fresh. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami's case, right? He met Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was small, and then he was told to stay and serve his parents, and after that go to Vrindavan
Yes.
and serve. While Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Puri. So
Yeah, not far away.
So, I mean, he knew the divinity, so it's like Krishna is right there, but still you obey the orders and
Yeah.
almost stay away. So it
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah. And when the permission was given to go, he didn't even go to Puri on the way. He just went to Vrindavan because that was the instruction. Phew. Okay.
So I think the question is, there is this factor of using our intelligence sometimes and sometimes we shouldn't, right? So in this case, he didn't say, oh, I will go to Vrindavan, but I will go via Puri. Do what you are told. So that intelligence comes from within, and we should know when not to be too intelligent.
Yeah. If you don't have intelligence, you're in trouble. But intelligence comes from super soul. So focus on super soul. And then there's a possibility you get little intelligence to know what to do when decisions have to be made. Okay, sometimes. So decisions have to be made. Yeah.
Very quick.
Yeah.
About the topic of relationships with devotee and so on, again in one of your lectures about Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami and Haridas Pandit both had this quality of never hearing anything negative.
Yes.
And no one would speak in their presence. So is
Yes.
that something that is achievable at a lower level of devotion, or it comes at very elevated?
Again, it depends. It depends on the degree. It depends on the relationship. Depends on the circumstance. If you are the kind of person that people know that you're troubled when that talk like that goes on, they won't say it to you. They may say it, but not to you. I just had just a little sharing. I just had this experience where there's an elderly man somewhere, and he's not initiated devotee. He has some respect for devotees, but he also just goes off on these tangents sometimes of bashing things that he doesn't like. He's an elderly kind of, and he's a doctor, medical doctor. He's a smart guy, a little grumpy. You know, old people can be a little grumpy. They got a grumpy license. But he crossed the line. And he's elderly, and we respect elders. But I said, I put my foot down. I said, I'm a follower of Krishna, and I worship Krishna's devotees, and I can't hear Vaishnava Parad. So if please desist, or I'll have to take some choices. It's just like for an elderly person to speak like that to an elderly person. I had to think about it for a few days, but I wasn't going to just let it go, because then I'm receiving some reaction for just being silent when somebody's speaking not properly. So he wrote back saying it wasn't like that, it was like this, and I'm sure he's going to be more careful in his communications with me, because I'm not going to hear it. and I'll take action if it happens again. And it won't be, not because it's just a spiritual principle. So you live by that spiritual principle, and people will know you're just that kind of a person. If I want to go grieve about somebody's, badness, I'll do it with somebody else because you're not fun. Okay, I'm going to end. The natives are restless, especially little children. Too much for them. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.